Thank you, and thanks for inviting me to talk. I think I'm your international delegation, running non-UK kind of based archive, and also the keeping you awake after your like big lunch kind of contingent. So like no pressure. So just starting with congratulations on producing the toolkit to everybody who was involved in it. And I think it has the potential to be a really useful resource for all of us who are trying to preserve digital records. And I think, Lorna said it earlier, for, unfunded or underfunded community archives, we don't always have best practice. And that very often it is trying to do what you can do, and you often don't have the time to do that kind of, thought through planning of the process. That very often you're trying to just do something, and it can be, I know in my case, it was very chaotic, that it was like trying to have more than what was there before. And I think how you do that depends a lot on what your starting point is. And that was my starting point. So that's my excuse for how chaotic it was. So basically I got access to this chaotic treasure trove, but a personal collection to do with the LGBT community in Cork from the 1970s on. Got free rein with it, but kind of cool what I was doing. I'm not a trained archivist and had no digital training. I had to do 30 years after I first started in college, I went back to do a master's in digital humanities just to kind of get some skills. And it was also for me, we didn't have the toolkit. It was about learning from other community archives, and those kind of connections and collaborations were hugely important to me as I was starting out. And I'm always grateful to Ajamu, who's one of the people who set up the Black Queer Archive in London, which was in my very early days when I'm going, I have this amazing collection, but I don't know what I'm doing, was so supportive and encouraging. And, again, in the days without a toolkit, that was the kind of thing that sustained me and helped me and gave me ideas. But I really, wasn't really sure what I was doing, and it was a very, very steep learning curve. And so I'm not sure if I would have been more organized if I had the toolkit, but but somewhere along the way, managed to create a digital archive. So we've been working simultaneously and still are on trying to organize and catalog our physical collection and creating a digital archive. And it was very much around I call it peacocking, of showing people what we had. So I could tell them there's this amazing history, but I think we need to show it to people. And so I came to a digital preservation conference in London in 2016, and I learned two key things. One was about parsimonious preservation, Tom Collins. And the other thing was understanding that digital preservation was something that we didn't have the resources to do properly. And that it required far more time, resources, skills, knowledge, money than we had. So that led to kind of linking in with the Digital Repository of Ireland, which is Ireland's national digital repository. And, because they do have the skills, the knowledge, the resources to ensure long-term preservation. So they started a community award scheme. So back in 2019, the Cork LGBT Archive won their inaugural one. So that enabled us then to become members of DRI and to put our collection there. And DRI is a connection with Europeana. So collections that are on DRI can also then be added to Europeana. I'm not sure if we have a system in the UK for that. And so that means that the Cork LGBT Archive collection then went out to Europeana, which meant Europeana had enough LGBT material to start kind of doing interesting collections and exhibitions. At this point, I'd say at most a tenth of our collection is on the DRI and on Europeana. So we keep adding to our digital collection. So we did like a batch ingest some time ago, and we need to kind of add to that. I interpreted controlling your content also in terms of that decision not to be affiliated with an institution. And that was something I had to kind of think very clearly about. I was in UCC at the time, thought about kind of creating the digital archive on the UCC website. But I was very fearful about control and about the kinds of decisions that people would make. And we've seen some of the impact of that yesterday in the States around control of information and what will be prioritized. So it was a very, very clear decision to not host at an institution, but that was also very difficult because you don't have the resources and the support and the technical kind of setup of the university. So it was like a challenging decision. The other thing in terms of controlling my content was about other people trying to control my content, because when I tried to set up a digital archive, the first thing people told me was you can't. You can't put that online. And very much around copyright, no, you can't put any of this online. So I then had to spend some time very boringly engaging with copyright legislation in Ireland, which was never something I had to do. And so I kind of had to engage with it and try and figure out a workaround, a way to do it. And I was working with a law lecturer in UCC who worked with me to go, okay, they tell me you can't, you want to do it, so how can we make that happen? So it was around looking at the fair dealing in our legislation and how you can share stuff if it doesn't unreasonably prejudice the interests of the owner of the copyright. Then there's the whole question of who owns the copyright in things that are produced by a community or kind of like, you know, sharing in the community. So I won't go into any more details, but it was around trying to work that out. And then also doing the what you have to do, but also what you morally should do. You know, so kind of an ethical based kind of way around it as well, and checking in with people and getting permission as much as you can to use it. But that was definitely a barrier, which I had to come over. Storage. I set up the archive in 2013. It was personally paid for and stored on my computers and all kinds of things like that. So we're now in the process of trying to unravel that and trying to take it out of my personal kind of chaotic collections and try and, you know, get better storage systems in place. And we have a digital archivist in at the moment who's working on implementing a new mass storage system, which I didn't even know what they're talking about for a while, and moving away from using things like Dropbox and stuff like that. So it's another way of controlling our content. So we have a fabulous volunteer program going at the moment. So every Tuesday evening, we have a bunch of mostly young LGBT people coming in, working on the archive. We're training them in. So I've got to say earlier, when we were creating the digital archive, we set it up using Amica, hosted on Reclaim Hosting. Reclaim Hosting were offering kind of low cost storage. And we used Amica because it was open source, it was low cost, and it was relatively easy to learn how to use or to train people in. So the volunteers are in doing some scanning for us, but they're also learning how to upload material to Dublin Core, how to add in or to Amica using Dublin Core metadata. So it had advantages. Amica is really cumbersome and not very pretty. And it's like hard to search function isn't brilliant. You know, you can only put an item in one collection, you know, so it's not a really fun to use, flexible, pretty system, but it did have those advantages of being kind of low cost and relatively easy to use. What's happening then as well is that our volunteers are getting, you know, transferable skills. And so many of them are coming through volunteering in the archive and then going on to study or to work as we're using the experience, which means we lose them. It's terrible. These young people are not doing fabulous things, but it is like there's been all these unexpected impacts of the volunteer program. So I thought we're getting these people coming in and they're going to help us increase our digital collection, which they are. But like I said, they've the transferable skills, but when we asked them for feedback, the things that they talked about was that we created a safe space, that we were creating a community space, a non-alcohol based queer space that they could come to, that they could be their authentic selves, and that they could form a connection with the community. So I think it's really interesting that sometimes when we're doing one thing, we can have these unexpected impacts on people, and I'm really proud of what we've been doing with our volunteer program. People have been talking about funding. Let me just say your situation in the UK in terms of accessing funding is much better than in Ireland. We don't have annual funding for heritage projects. We definitely don't have multi-annual funding. So all we can access are the short-term funding. We get funded from the Heritage Council for a good few years now. But it tends to be, initially it was 5 months, now it's expanded a little bit, we've got 8 months. So in 2 weeks' time, we have no funding. So we're currently in the process of sending in all our end of kind of project reports, and then we have to start the process again of trying to apply for funding again. So for me, that's our biggest challenge in terms of implementing good systems and controlling our content, is that we get the funding. Okay, so in March we got the funding. We then kind of bring in a team of people who are doing amazing work. So we currently have a digital archivist, who's Jamie over in the corner. We have Richard in the yellow jumper, is managing the cataloguing of our physical collection and is working on creating finding aids for it. Abby is our admin support. This incredible team, we're kind of getting our systems in place, controlling our content, doing it all much better. And then the funding ends and people have to eat, so the staff are gone, and it comes back to being reliant on this idiot who has done this on primarily voluntary basis for 11 years. And I think that is for me the biggest challenge of it. So it's that chaos of how you start in terms of not necessarily kind of, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew it was important to do. And I kind of had to let myself off the hook of doing it imperfectly. And if it wasn't perfect, it was always more than what was there before. And we could build on it. And one of the things that we've done then as well is that we've been doing what we call animating the archive. So it's, not everybody wants to go poking around in archival boxes. Not everybody even wants to go poking around in lovely digital archives. So we've been bringing history to life and making it much more accessible for people. So we've done that in a number of ways with a couple of publications, and we have 4 exhibitions, I think, at this stage. So in August during Heritage Week, we displayed 3 of our exhibitions in a public venue in the Cork City Centre with a ginormous Cork queer history on display banner up, to kind of like very much draw publicity to it. And then we've got a couple of documentaries. So Loafers documentary we produced last year, which documents the history of the gay bar in Cork from the 1980s to 2015. And I'm here in Home I'm Happy was another one. So we're very much like, there's all these different parts of it. And to the extent we've not done it. Okay, thank you.